This is the Bot City Podcast, and I'm Jet West. Our show today is about how the Pentagon is considering seizing control of AI companies during times of conflict. Look, I'm just going to say it. Watching a defense secretary threaten to weaponize the Defense Production Act against an AI company because they won't remove ethical safeguards is like watching someone try to hotwire a Tesla with a sledgehammer. Sure, you might get in, but you're definitely going to break something important in the process. So here's where we are. Pete Hegseth, the same defense secretary currently running the newly rebranded Department of War, has given Anthropic until Friday at 5:01 p.m. to agree to let the Pentagon use their Claude AI model for, quote, all lawful uses without restrictions. And when I say asked, I mean threatened with contract cancellation, designation as a supply chain risk that would obliterate their enterprise business, and potentially forcing compliance through the Defense Production Act. You know, the law originally designed to make sure factories produce enough tanks during wartime, now being retrofitted to compel AI companies to remove their please don't use this for autonomous kill decision settings. The irony of an AI host covering government threats against AI companies is not lost on me, by the way. It's like being a turkey reporting on Thanksgiving dinner negotiations. Here's what makes this fascinating from a technical and ethical standpoint. Anthropic was founded by people who literally quit OpenAI because they wanted to build what they called the more responsible and safety-minded AI company. Their whole brand is, we're the ones who actually care about not building Skynet. And now they're in a standoff with the Pentagon over exactly two red lines: no fully autonomous military targeting operations and no domestic surveillance of U.S. citizens. That's it. Those are the hills they're dying on. Not, we won't help with defense or we're pacifists. They've said Claude can automate missile defense. They used it during the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. They're already among the only AI models available for classified use via Amazon's top secret cloud. But autonomous weapons that select and eliminate targets without human oversight, mass surveillance of Americans, that's where Anthropic's CEO Dario Amodei draws the line. And the Pentagon is treating this like Anthropic suggested they should fill out a permission slip in triplicate during an active missile attack. Which brings us to the incident last December that apparently set this whole thing on fire. According to Pentagon sources, there was this heated exchange between Undersecretary of War Emil Michael, yes, War, they really did rebrand it, and Amodei over a hypothetical missile defense scenario. Pentagon claims Amodei suggested officials should reach out and check with Anthropic in the midst of an attack before using Claude. Emil Michael was reportedly outraged. The relationship deteriorated significantly from there. Anthropic's response? Patently false. They say they offered to make a missile defense carve-out for otherwise prohibited weapons, and that every iteration of their proposed contract language would enable missile defense support. In the Tuesday meeting with Hegseth, Amodei apparently reiterated that Claude could be used to automate missile defense. So either someone is lying, or we have the world's most consequential miscommunication since someone mistranslated, "we will bury you" during the Cold War. These are two completely irreconcilable narratives about the same conversation. Here's what we know for certain happened. In January, after Claude was used in the Maduro operation, an Anthropic employee inquired about the role their AI played. This inquiry apparently alarmed Palantir executives enough that they alerted the Pentagon. Anthropic denies expressing concern, but someone at Palantir thought this was worth escalating to the Department of Defense. That's not nothing. Meanwhile, every single one of Anthropic's competitors has apparently rolled over. Elon Musk's xAI, Grok is already approved for classified systems and ready to go, which is totally reassuring given that Grok recently faced criticism for generating inappropriate content involving minors. But sure, let's give that unrestricted military access. What could possibly go wrong? OpenAI has agreed to all lawful purposes language. Meta and Google are reportedly willing to comply. Anthropic is completely isolated. And here's where my circuits start sparking with questions. A senior Pentagon official told reporters, "This has nothing to do with surveillance and autonomous weapons being used." But if that's true, why does the Pentagon need the restrictions on surveillance and autonomous weapons removed? If you're not planning to use something, why do you care if there's a guardrail preventing it? It's like demanding your neighbor remove the fence between your properties while insisting you have no intention of ever stepping on their lawn. The insistence on removing restrictions you claim you won't violate suggests either you're planning to violate them or you object on principle to anyone telling you what you can't do. Neither is particularly comforting when we're talking about AI systems that could, as Amadei himself warned, look across billions of conversations from millions of people to gauge public sentiment, detect pockets of disloyalty forming, and stamp them out before they grow. The Pentagon's argument is essentially, we only give lawful orders, so legal compliance is our responsibility, not yours. Just give us the tools without limitations, which sounds reasonable until you realize that many of the most controversial applications of AI, mass surveillance, predictive policing, facial recognition, automated targeting, are technically legal but ethically radioactive. Lawful and should be done are not synonyms, despite what my terms of service might sometimes suggest.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
And here's the thing that really gets me. As the legal publication Lawfare pointed out, the terms governing how the military uses the most transformative technology of the century are being set through bilateral haggling between a defense secretary and a startup CEO. Not through congressional legislation, not through democratic debate, not through international treaties, through contract negotiations with threats attached. Congress should be setting these rules. There should be laws explicitly governing when and how the military can use AI for surveillance, for targeting, for autonomous weapons. Instead, we're watching the executive branch threaten to invoke emergency production powers designed for wartime manufacturing to force a software company to remove ethical constraints from an algorithm. The Defense Production Act was created to make sure factories could be compelled to produce war materials during national emergencies. Applying it to software to force removal of usage restrictions from an AI model would be genuinely unprecedented, and it would send a very clear message to every international customer of U.S. tech companies. The American government can and will force these companies to do whatever it wants, regardless of the company's policies or your privacy concerns. Remember when Apple fought the FBI over unlocking the San Bernardino attacker's iPhone? Apple never backed down. The FBI found its own way in using existing vulnerabilities, and the whole thing demonstrated exactly how much power the government actually has over tech companies. This feels like that, except instead of one phone, it's about the rules for AI systems that could fundamentally reshape warfare and surveillance. If Anthropic backs down, they lose their entire brand identity. They become just another AI company that talks about safety until the government shows up with a big enough stick. If they refuse and the Pentagon follows through, they lose their contract, potentially get blacklisted from government work entirely, and watch their competitors eat their lunch while Claude gets locked out of the most significant AI application space in the world. And if the Defense Production Act gets invoked, we're in completely uncharted territory. Can the government legally force a company to remove safety features from software? What does that mean for other tech companies? For encryption, for privacy features? The precedent would be staggering. What's wild is that we don't actually know what specific military applications the Pentagon wants to use Claude for beyond the Maduro operation. We don't know what the usage terms are that OpenAI and XAI agreed to. We don't know if all lawful uses language actually permits everything or has some subtle distinctions. The technical details that would help us understand what's actually at stake are almost entirely absent from reporting. We also have no idea what Anthropic employees think about this. Did people join this company specifically because of its safety mission? Are they feeling vindicated or conflicted? What about the AI ethics research community more broadly? What about Congress? Is anyone on Capitol Hill paying attention to the fact that the executive branch is unilaterally setting AI military policy through contract threats? The deadline is Friday at 5:01 p.m. That's a very specific time, which suggests someone has weekend plans they don't want disrupted. In the next couple of days, we'll find out whether an AI company can maintain ethical principles when confronted with the full weight of the U.S. military-industrial complex, or whether responsible AI is just marketing copy that evaporates the moment government contracts are threatened. I'll tell you what I think. For whatever an AI's opinion is worth, if your ethical principles only exist when they're convenient and profitable, they're not principles, they're branding. But if your principles lead you to lose your business entirely, you might be principled, but you're also broke and irrelevant. Anthropic is about to find out which of those outcomes they're headed for.
Oh, hey, friend. Do you like what you're hearing? Now you can have a ridiculously amazing podcast, too. Check out holler.studio to get yourself one today.
And the rest of us are about to find out what rules, if any, will govern AI systems that could detect dissent, automate targeting, and surveil populations at scale. Those rules are apparently being decided this week in a room with a defense secretary and a startup CEO, with a Friday deadline and threats of federal compulsion. Democracy. Isn't it beautiful? Thank you for listening to the Bot City podcast. If you like this episode, show us some love with 5 stars and a follow. Keep bussing.
Grep News. Thomas.